Okay, so before we get too far along, let's do some naming because we need to add stuff in here. So I'm going to once again middle mouse click on tentacle to select everything in the hierarchy. I'm going to come over to the naming tool and I want to get rid of this and get rid of this, and I want to put a prefix. And so when you're building characters, and I try to stay with that, this idea is you always name the limbs by the character's right and left, not yours looking at the character. So that would make this the right front tentacle of the octopus. So we're going to put in capital R underscore front and underscore, and I put the last underscore so that it doesn't jam into the word that's next, and hit replace name. Now everything is named in that hierarchy as far as with right front. The only other thing we need to do is come in here, middle mouse click that, and another way to see that you've got everything selected without opening it is right here. As you can see that it's listed all 35 elements. So let's go back to the naming tool. Let's get rid of this. We'll type in joint, and we're going to replace that with null. And all you do is have to hit replace name. So now all the nulls are named as nulls, the joints are named as joints. This is our front tentacle, and this is the null that everything lives in. So let's go into the top view by hitting F2. And it looks like I've moved this out already. So if you haven't, yours is probably going to be at the center still. You want to move this out, and it's not exact, but we're going to move it to about here. I've got it lined up on these grid marks. It looks like mine, if you come down in here, it's minus 172.044. Let's actually make that minus 170 on both, and then we'll just hit apply, and that'll move it. And so we know exactly where that is now. We're going to go back into the perspective mode by hitting F1, and we're going to start building out our octopus a little bit. And like I said, this isn't about modeling an octopus, but I do want you to see how this works with an octopus that has 4 tentacles, and that we can animate each tentacle separately, which doesn't happen with some other spline rigs. Okay, so what we want to do first is, if you haven't filtered out your joints in your viewport, I would suggest it, and also filter out nulls so none of that stuff is showing. And so what we're going to do first is hit UL and grab our loop tool, make sure we're in edge mode, and make sure that your actual geometry is selected. So we can do that. And if you go back to your selection tool, you get your arrow out here, and you can hold down Control and just pull that out. Okay. And the reason I'm doing that is it's a lot easier for doing what we're doing now. I'm hitting the scale tool. I'm trying to get this so I can see what I'm doing. And we're going to scale this out. Let's see, I've got about, and try to get that close to 160. You can see the number right there. And again, it doesn't have to be exact. I was lucky I hit it, 160. Okay, and then we want to pull this bottom up because we don't want it down. We don't want that bottom dipping down below the tentacle that far. So if we stay in this mode, if you come over to your modeling axis, you have some controls about where you can make this next transformation. So I want to move this down, actually up in Y. So I want to move it up to here. Okay, so now my center of the transformation is going to come from here, which means it's going to pull this up before it pulls this up. And so if you have that done, and you can just pull this down a little bit to bring that kind of closer to where we want it. And then what I'm going to do is back in top mode. And the reason I'm going to top mode is I want to see where I'm at when we go to start connecting these tentacles together. So I'm going to get out of the that world coordinate and go back into local. I'm going to hit E, oops, and now I got to go back in there. And I'm going to hold Control down, and I'm going to pull out once again, a little farther this time. And I'm going to go back to my transform, hit T key for scale, and I'm going to bring that out to about there. Okay, so that should give us somewhat of a nice curvature. I wouldn't make it parallel with that. So basically, when we duplicate this on the other end, it should have a nice curve to it. And let's go back into the perspective, F1, and again, let's get our scale tool, and now we do want the world. So that puts that back up there. And once again, I'm going to just pull down on that to pull that bottom up. And I think that's going to work just fine for what we're doing. Let's go back into top mode. Okay, get our tentacle completely in the viewport. Now this next step, normally you might want to think about going to a symmetry to create this next tentacle. But the problem with that is if you use symmetry, it won't bring over our null hierarchy that we created. It will only bring over the joints and the tentacle, and that's not good enough. We spent too much time making that. So what I want to do is select this, and we're going to go into the character tool, and we're going to use the mirror tool. So character tab, mirror tool. And let's go in here and look at what our options are. This is all good, the direction. We want target to clone, and that's okay. Properties, all that's fine. So the only really thing we want to do is to replace this R underscore with an L underscore, because we're going to make it a left front. So let's go in here and type in R underscore and put in L underscore. And the reason I'm putting the underscore is just in case there's another R in there, we don't want it to change other than the first one. So with children is checked, we'll hit mirror, and you see that we have our left tentacle, and we have our left null hierarchy, our joints, and our tentacle, and everything worked perfectly. Let's create a new null just at the center of our viewport. So just click a null in. And let's just rename this Octopus, O-C-T-O-P-U-S, because now we need to clean things up even a little more. So we have our front tentacle, so let's move our nulls into there, our joints into there, and our geometry. And we want to do that the same with the nulls. So, and I'm going to put the nulls under the nulls. I'm going to put the joints under the joints, and I'm going to put this geometry under the geometry, and I'm going to just click these and get rid of both. The reason I'm doing this is because this is where we have to end up. We have to end up with everything in this one null, our joints all separate, but our geometry as all one piece. So we're going to do that right now. We're going to select both of these pieces of geometry, and I'm going to right click, come down to connect objects, and delete. So now we have one piece of geometry, and I'm hoping that our selections still are there, and they are. And now you see though, on this particular geometry, you see how we have this blue and the orange? Well, that's because the normals have flipped when we did our mirror. The normals on this arm, this tentacle, flipped. So what we want to do is we do want to get that straightened out. And so what we want to do is get your UL for your loop tool in polygon mode. We're going to select those line of polygons, and we're going to select this loop at the end. It's actually easier just to select these bottom polygons with your selection tool. Just hold down Shift and select them like that. Now we want to get the rest of those. So if you go up to Select and come down to Fill Selection, hold Shift and click. Now everything's selected, and you can see all the polygons are blue. So if we come up to Mesh, Normals, and say Reverse Normals, now we have them orange, and that's what we want. We want the orange is the outside of the polygon, the inside. If I take this and select them all, you can see that they're all orange now. Okay, so let's deselect all of those. And what we're going to do is we're going to right click and grab our bridge tool. And so we're going to, let's get into edge mode and deselect those. Go back here, right click and grab the bridge tool. And if you see what I'm doing, if you grab that, it lights up. You can connect that, and that's what we want to do. We want to connect. Oops, you gotta be careful there. You want to get that connected right, and it's not. So just undo that. Okay, undo that again. Let's try from this end. Okay, so for some reason that just doesn't want to work. So let's go up into here. There we go. And I'm going to, oh, that one worked. And basically you're just clicking and dragging across. I guess I should have showed that. Click and drag. And there we go. And so I'm going to just clean this up just slightly right now. Go into point mode. I'm going to grab my rectangular selection and make sure that only select visible elements is deselected, because I want to go in here and I want to select all 4 of those points. Go into the world coordinates and just pull these in slightly and give us a nice curve there. Again, this is really not a modeling tutorial, but okay. So we've got the front part of him built. And let's go into top mode. So let's go up to the character tab, come down to the mirror tool again, and we need to change these settings this time. So we need to go into selected, okay, because we're changing this. Oops. Go back here. Selected, but this we want to go into local. And so now we've got the Z-axis, because that's what we're going to flip this on. And everything else stays the same. And I think for now we're going to just delete these out and hit the mirror, and that gives us another set of tentacles. And oops, that's our first, and this is our nulls, and everything came over. Let's go back into the perspective mode, and let's just check our new geometry. I have a feeling we're going to have the same issue we had before. And we're going to hit Command A on the Mac to select everything. And yes, all the normals are backwards, the reverse. So let's go back to Mesh, Normals, and Reverse Normals. Now if we select both of these at the same time and hit Command A to select all, everything looks good. So let's once again clean up our hierarchy. Now we need to change our names before we do, so we don't get too confused here. And this is our back. So again, middle mouse click that hierarchy. You can see they're all selected. Those are all the nulls. We're going to go back up to the tools, the naming tool. And what we want to replace this time is, let's see. Oh, how did I lose that? Okay, they're all selected. So what we want is to get, we want to replace front, capital F-R-O-N-T, and I don't think you need the underscore this time. And we're going to replace that with back, so that would be the right back. And we're going to, actually, we should be able to select all of these. Just shift middle mouse click each of these things. And that way everything is going to be selected, and we only have to change one time front to back. And there we have it. And so this is the, let's see, let's get out of there. Okay, so that is the left back. That is right back, left back nulls, right back nulls. Okay. All right. So once again, we do have to move these around. So I'm going to go and put my right. Now I'm going to keep the fronts and the backs together. Back and right front. Yeah, I actually want that under there. Right front and back. Right there. And then I want to move that in there, and we can just delete. Take these two, and we will connect objects and delete. All right, so let's go into our polygon tool. Click somewhere outside of the object. We don't want any polygons selected. Let's get our bridge tool and start connecting some of these. All right, we need to go into edge mode. Now, collect. Sometimes they look wonky, but they actually come in right, like that. Again, we are not going for a perfect model. Just get this connected like that, and that looks pretty good. And then if you grab your close polygon hole, go to the edge, closes that one up. And that one we want to leave open. And just for the sake of whatever, let's go into point mode, and in our selection we should be a move. Actually, I'm going to do it a different way though. This will be easier and faster. Let's go into point mode and go into top, and we're going to grab our rectangular selection, make sure select visible elements is deselected. We're going to come in here, hold down the T, and just pull these apart somewhat, and do the same. And again, it's not, don't worry about it being exact. Just giving ourselves a little bit of room in there. Okay, go back in here. That looks pretty good. Okay. So let's just finish off, just put a quick head on this thing. And actually we can do that by just closing that hole. And we'll extrude. Okay, we'll go into polygon mode. Select that polygon. And we're going to, actually we don't even have to do that. Let's just hold down Control, pull up again, enlarge, pull up again. This is like down and dirty stuff. And then we're going to pull up again and reduce, and I think that's going to be it. And then just to put one extra loop, a couple of extra loops in here, go hit K for your knife tool and come over and change this to loop, and we should get a loop. Now I'm going to show you a little trick here, because we want to get that pretty close to center, but you can actually get it exactly in center. So when you see that, come over and hit your shift key. That sets it temporarily, and then you can come in here and put in 50%, click it in this part, and then come click it here. And now it's exactly 50%. We're going to do the same thing here. Hit shift key. You can see that it's temporary because it's showing the points. Come in here, make that 50, then you want to click in here so that you accept the 50 here, then you click in the viewport to accept the cut. So now, just with a little tinkering, we're going to go back into top view, we're going to go into point mode, we're going to grab our rectangular selection again, and we really want to select all the way across, but then I'm going to deselect these center ones, because I want to pull just this in a little bit. Ooh, not too much. Actually, you know what? Just leave those. So let's go in and select these. And this is just the neck and head that we built. And if we pull these out slightly, we'll get a little nicer curvature to things. So it doesn't look quite so clunky. And I mean, it's going to look clunky right now, but once you stick that into a hyper NURBS, and we're going to just do that with that selected, hold down Option, And it's a goofy looking octopus, but that's okay. You could mess around with this for as long as you want and get something nice. I'm going to deselect that. I am going to just grab these with the selection tool, just grab these bottom points and just pull, oops, don't forget the center one, and just pull those up slightly, a little bit, and pull the center one up. Okay, so we have a little concave. All right. And that is our octopus for right now. So let's get rid of this subdivision surface. I'm going to go right click and come down to delete without children. And I think our hierarchy is all good. And I am going to actually save this, Command S, and then I'm going to go up and I'm going to increment, save incremental. Okay, and that's going to put an 0001 on there. So now we've got the other one saved, and I'm just going to get rid of this build so it's not in our viewport. And I am going to get rid of this as well. Remove. Okay. And I'm going to save one more time, and we are ready to start animating these joints.